back to another episode of Planet Hunters Coffee Chat. I'm your host, Cole Johnston, and joining us as always is Nora Eisner over here. Hi, Nora.
Hi, Cole. How are you?
Not too bad. I have my coffee, so everything's going well, and I'm ready to talk about some planets.
Me too. I'm always ready to talk about planets.
So, just as a recap, these past several episodes, mostly with Cassie, a little bit with me, we've been going over ways to verify that a certain signal that we see in TESS data is a planet or not. Right, and you run all of these tests for different reasons, and now at the end you're just like, cool, now we know that these are a planet or not. But I guess something that always frustrates me is when I have to do things several different times, right? So I have to pull up a new code to do this, a new code to do that. But you found a way around that.
Yeah. So, as Cole just alluded to, we have this kind of big code that makes all of these plots, these diagnostics, these kind of false positive tests in one go, and makes them all for you and puts them into this nice PDF document for you. And the code is called LATTE. It does stand for something. It isn't just that we like lattes. It stands for, well, we do also like coffee. We're starting to come across, this is Planet Hunters Coffee Chat, we're talking about latte. People must think we're completely coffee obsessed. And maybe we are. But it's called LATTE and it stands for Lightcurve Analysis Tool for Transiting Exoplanets. And we're going to go through how that tool works today. Let me share my screen. Okay, cool. So what you can see here is this is a tool called GitHub. This is online. This is basically just a website that hosts lots of different codes. And LATTE is one of them. And the reason I'm bringing you to this page is just so because you can have, because I wanted to show you the logo. No, I'm joking. Is because this page kind of explains how to install the code and how to use it. So if in doubt, if you are going to try and use this code and you have questions about it, come back to this page and hopefully there should be some information on here for you. Now, there's going to be a document alongside this video that explains exactly how you can install this code. So I'm not going to go over it just now, but if you have I
was just going to say, you've been saying the word code quite a lot. Is this something that the users are going to have to actually type anything into, or is it more of an interface?
Yeah, so it has an interface. There is just one line that we have to use to get the code running. So why don't we that's a good point. Let's demonstrate that before we talk about how to do anything else. So let's do clear. All right, so to run LATTE, you do need to use a terminal window on your computer. And actually, before I go any further, I have to say that I apologize, but this code only works on Linux and Macs. It does not currently work on Windows. So I am very sorry about that. Hopefully it will work on Windows in the future, but as of this moment, unfortunately, it doesn't. Okay, so the only bit of coding that you ever have to do to run LATTE is to type this one line of code, and that's Python -m LATTE. And then you press enter, and the code will start running for you. And after this, you just have to play around with some buttons, but I will show you that in a second. So the first box that pops up is this box, and it prompts you to enter the tick ID of this star. So I've already copied and pasted a tick ID, so I'm going to paste that in there and then press OK.
All right, so it looks like we're off to the races.
We are. We're about to see the light curve. Not just yet. We are prompted to also tell it which sectors we want to look at. So you can see there are two lists here. The top is the list of all of the sectors in which this target was observed. But some of those sectors were just in the full frame images and not in this short cadence test data, which we've been using or exclusively been using so far. So instead of choosing a number from these, because the code will fail, we will choose some sectors from this shorter list down here. And sometimes these lists are the same, but in this case, it's not. So the more sectors we choose, the longer this code will take to run. So instead of choosing all of them, let's just choose 2 sectors for now. And we can choose them by typing in 40 and then 41. And they have to be separated by a comma.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's important to put that comma in there. And then we press enter, and you can see in the background here, the data is being downloaded, and it's done.
It's doing it for us. Oh. And then we have something that pops up for us. And I've got to say, I think I found a planet.
Well, Cole, I think you're getting ahead of yourselves because we have not done all the false positive tests, so we actually don't know yet.
Sorry, very true. Okay.
But the good thing about this is that, yeah, we can see it here, but also once we've selected the transit events, all of those false positive tests will be automatically generated for us. But again, we are getting ahead of ourselves. So what we do when we have this interface is we simply have to tell the code where those transit events are. And there are so many transit events in this that we do not want to mark them all. I recommend, if there are multiple, marking either 2 or 3.
Okay.
And we do that by clicking on the light curve. You can click either on the top light curve or the bottom light curve, and that just moves that red line, or these red lines around. And what you're seeing in this bottom panel is always a cutout of where that red line is in the top panel. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the center of one of those transit events and press this button, add time. We'll then go to the next one over, also kind of refine it down here, click on the center, and do add time. Now, if you want to look at one sector at a time, you can also click on 40 or 41, and which just shows you one sector at a time. So if you have lots of sectors, if you're looking at lots of sectors, it's sometimes useful to click through them one at a time.
Okay, now I'm noticing that there are other blue lines in here.
Yes,
in the
good.
top plot.
That's an excellent thing to point out. So let's go to one of those blue lines. You can see them in the bottom plot as well. Yeah, so these blue lines indicate times of momentum dumps, and they happen relatively periodically. You can see there's multiple of these. And these are times where TESS is slightly more unstable because TESS is releasing momentum. Now, we want to make sure that if we have, for example, a single transit event in our light curve, a transit-like event, and that transit-like event occurs exactly on one of these momentum dumps, then we really have to be very careful about whether this event could be real, because a lot of the time, those can be caused by those momentum dumps and by these systematics. So those can often be systematic false positives. So we just want to be careful that if there is a single transit event, we want to make sure that it doesn't occur right on a momentum dump. And if it does, we want to do some extra checks just to make sure that it is in fact real. All right, we also have some things on the left-hand side here. We have the binning factor. We previously talked about binning. If we click through these, you can see that just in the top panel, not the bottom panel. You can see the binning changes, and that can affect kind of the features that you see in that light curve, so that can be useful to play around with. Then down here we have settings, so you can press these buttons. The simple one, if you select this, so for example, if we click on that, then the report that you get at the end will only be of the kind of the most simple plots. So it will only be of the background flux diagnostic plot, and the centroid motion, and the light curve itself. And the reason for that is if you're in a rush, maybe you just want to do a very quick report, then these are much, much quicker to generate. As you'll see in a moment, generating the full report can take around a minute. So let's unclick that, we want a full report. The show plots just means that when you press done at the end, the plots will pop up as they are generated, and the next plot will only be generated once you have closed the one that's already open. Keep that in mind. North is if you want all the images to align north. That also makes the code a little bit slower, so I tend to leave that unchecked unless I really care about which way the images are facing. The BLS search, this is something that we covered in one of the very first episodes. This is the box least squared search. It searches for periodic signals in the light curve. So you might remember the BLS search chops up the light curve at a trial orbital period, folds all the pieces on top of one another, and sees whether anything aligns. So again, that can be a good sanity check to see whether you can find whether there are any additional signals in this light curve. And bear in mind, the BLS search cannot find single transit events.
Right, okay. So if we only see one event, we do not want to click BLS.
BLS also tends to slow down the code, so I usually don't. Apparently I'm always in a rush. So I tend to not run the BLS search. Then there's something called model underneath. This models the light curves. Now I should say, unfortunately, this is only in my version. This is still in the test phase, so you will not see this option, so I won't cover it.
Holding out on us.
I know, I'm sorry. It will come soon, I promise. And then underneath we have save. This is automatically checked. So is report save, just saves all the figures, and report makes a report at the end. So I would always keep those checked unless you're adamantly against saving any data or making the PDF report. Although I would say that it's very useful to make the PDF report at the end. And underneath you have these quick look kind of features. So if we click on one of these and we say, let's have a very quick look at what the background is doing without generating the report, then you can click on that and it just pops up, and you can see those automatically, and these should be looking familiar, hopefully. Now let's close that. Now the final button that I want to mention before we make this report is this seismology button. So this is to do some astroseismic analysis. Now, we haven't covered astroseismology. That will be its entire different episode. Astroseismology is great fun, and I'm sure Cole can tell us a lot about that. That's what he does in his own work. So we will not cover that today, but we will revisit this in a future episode.
Okay, well, before we move on, I noticed that you have something down the bottom, optional memorable name. And I think we should give our target here a memorable name.
I think that's a great idea. What would you like the memorable name to be?
I love that little lobster from The Little Mermaid, so we're going to call this Sebastian.
That sounds good. You can call it whatever you want. Make it as memorable as you can. So we typed that in. It's being quite slow, but it has appeared. And this just means that once it is saved on your computer, it will be saved with that name. Because sometimes these tick IDs, they can just become a bit overwhelming in trying to remember them. That's why I've only memorized 3. All right, so we have done everything. The only thing that you need to do once you have this interface open is you need to select at least one transit event. And once you have done that, you simply press done. And if we go over here, you can see that things start to happen. Now this will just run in the background and generate a PDF report for us. Now in the meantime, instead of just sitting here waiting for words to appear on this screen, why don't we go to a report that I've already pre-generated and very briefly look through that whilst this new report is being made. And we will look at a report for a target that we've looked at a lot already. And we will open that and have a look at it. All right, but this is a great target. This is tick 555-25572. You can see that at the top here. And what we're always shown first is the full light curve. And underneath, we will see cutouts, in this case, one cutout, of the transits that we have marked. So if you've marked multiple transits, you will see multiple boxes underneath as opposed to just one. And this is just, as we've previously discussed, to look at things like the shape. Is it consistent with what we expect a transit-like signal to look like? And in this case, yes, it is. All right, then we have this table of parameters. So here we have various parameters, such as the tick ID. Here at the top, we have the location of it. We have the right ascension and declination. This is the location on the sky. We have the stellar radius, stellar mass, stellar effective temperature. We have the parallax. This gives you an idea of the distance of how far away this target is. We have the magnitudes. These are brightnesses. As a quick reminder, magnitudes are the magnitude scale is opposite to what you'd expect it to be. A higher number, a higher magnitude means that the object is dimmer. So smaller numbers means it's bright. I like things that are probably numbers smaller than around 11. Those are easier to follow up using ground-based observations. Then we have the sectors. So we have the sectors from the nominal mission. So these are from the first 2 years of the mission. And then we have the sectors from the extended mission. So from year 3 and 4. Then you get told whether it's a TCE. So this is a TCE is a candidate that was flagged by the automated transit detection pipeline run at MIT. And at the bottom here, you have whether it's a T or I. So this is if it's a TESS, TOI stands for TESS object of interest. This is if the kind of TESS science team has decided that this is a good candidate.
Okay, so just if we make this report and we see that this has been flagged as either a TCE or a TOI, that gives us some indication that it has been looked at in some capacity. Not necessarily for being a planet, but potentially. So we should keep that in mind, right? Yeah,
definitely. And also, if it is a TCE, if there is a TCE report for this object, then underneath here there will be, in this case it's not, but if it is a TCE, then underneath there will be a link that you can click on, which will take you to that TCE report. And you can also click on this, which will take you to the ExoFOP site for this target. All right, so moving on, we have the background flux. Just a quick reminder, we want the background flux to not have any spikes in it. This is a great example of that. Similar with the centro positions, again, we want these to be smooth, we want them to be relatively flat. Again, good example for this candidate. Now, we haven't talked about the aperture size test. So very, very briefly, if we look at this figure down here, this is kind of a cutout of our target, or around our target. We have 11 by 11 pixels. Now, this is the pipeline aperture. This is the aperture that the automated pipeline thought was a good sized aperture to use to extract these light curves. Now, what we're doing here is we're also extracting a light curve using a smaller aperture, and it's around 60% smaller. You can kind of see that here. And what we want to make sure is that the shape and the transit depth are the same with both apertures. And you can see that that is the case here. They look very, very similar. Now, I should point out that sometimes you'll notice that they are offset. So one will be much higher up and one will be much lower down. As long as the transit depths are roughly the same, then that's nothing to worry about. But if you have, for example, a background eclipsing binary, then often you have the case that for the larger aperture, you will see kind of these large dips. You see the eclipses from the background eclipsing binary, the binary nearby. But in the smaller aperture, you won't see them. So it's kind of a good test to rule out things like that.
So because the smaller aperture doesn't include as much light, and the idea is that if we're taking a closer look at the target, if it's off target, we're not getting the light from that other star.
Yeah.
So we just don't see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, then the next one is, hopefully these are all looking very familiar. The next one is the in and out of transit flux comparison. So we have the flux in transit during the transit on the left, we have the flux out of transit in the middle, and on the right we have the difference between the two. And we just want to make sure that these bright pixels are in the same location on all of those. Then we have a little cutout of the target, and we have points to show where other nearby stars are. So this doesn't show all stars, this only shows stars that are within 5 magnitudes of the magnitude of our target star. So we don't want to see all of the really, really faint ones, we just want to see the ones that are roughly the same brightness as our target star. Then we have the nearest neighbor light curves. This is the one we talked about last week, which we can sometimes use to track asteroids. We have the pixel by pixel cutout, and the red line here, as a reminder, shows the aperture that was used to identify this transit event. Now I want to point out that in this example here, it's quite difficult, or almost maybe it's impossible to see the actual transit event on these pixels. And I did previously say that we want to find the dips on those brightest pixels, but because this transit event is quite shallow, it's just really, really difficult to see. But that's nothing to worry about because we can't see it anywhere else either. So we know it's not coming from a different source. It's just too small to see when you're just extracting it with 1 pixel. So again, this is a good example of a not false positive.
Okay.
Now there are 2 more plots, which we haven't discussed in previous episodes. So this is a periodogram. This shows you kind of periodic signals in the light curve. Now, this kind of will tie in again with that episode of astroseismic analysis. So I'm actually not going to cover this right now. But we will cover this in a future episode.
I look forward to it.
Me too. I love astroseismology. All right, the final plot. I will let Cole explain this plot.
Okay, well, so as somebody who studies stars, this is a very familiar plot to me. One of the typical ways that we characterize stars is through their size, so the radius, what's shown on the y-axis here, and how hot they are on their surface. So the x-axis that we see is effective temperature, and we see that the units for the y-axis are in terms of solar radii, so how many times bigger or smaller than the size of our sun it is. And then we have Kelvin, which is just similar enough to Celsius, not Fahrenheit, but that's a whole other thing. So these black tracks are theoretical predictions for how a star is going to evolve in time, right? So a star is born, not in the Lady Gaga sense. And then It is a certain size and a certain temperature, and as stars evolve, they tend to get larger and cooler, at least for the first part of their lives. And that's exactly what we see in these black tracks here, right? So all of these different black tracks represent stars of different masses, so different weight stars. And as you can see, all of them have a similar trajectory where they start getting maybe a little hotter, but larger, and then they veer off to the right and get quite a bit cooler, as we can see. You also might notice something that astronomers do that is a little bit annoying for the rest of the world. We put the hotter temperatures on the left and the cooler temperatures on the right. So, sorry about that, it wasn't my decision, but I'm propagating it. Now the important reference point here is that red track in the middle, right? So that red solid track that turns dotted. This represents our predictions for how our sun is going to evolve in time. And that is one solar mass star. And then what we can use this as is a reference point for the tracks to the left, which are more massive, and the tracks to the right, which are less massive. And I believe that they go in increments of 0.1 solar mass. So 10% of the mass of the sun we increase with each track in either direction. Now, immediately what we can see is that our star, the one that we're looking at in this example, is represented by that red dot up there. And two or three things immediately pop out. So first off, we can see that it is further to the left than our red track. So we know that this star is more massive, it's bigger than heavier than our sun. And we see that it is quite a bit larger. It is about 2 times the size of our sun. Now the other way that you can read this is that is in fact a more evolved star.
So older.
It's older, it's gotten bigger, it's had time to go through all its fuel, and it's moving on to the next stage of its life. It's no longer staying in its parents' house, it's off to college. Now the really fun thing about this, what makes this particular target interesting, is that it is in a different place from all the other blue dots. And all the other blue dots that we're seeing on this plot represent other stars that have planets around them that are being identified by the TESS team.
So these are the TOIs.
Right, see, these are all the TOIs, and we immediately see that this star is in a different region of this plot than all the other blue dots. And that tells us that it's uncommon, and that I find very interesting.
Yeah, this is why I've memorized this tick ID, because it's a very interesting star. Studying planets like this can maybe tell us about the future of our own solar system. All right, so very briefly, the other plot has finished making. It is now under a folder called Sebastian. So we could open that, but instead of looking at that one, which I will just tell you straight out that is a confirmed planet. So none of the false positive tests will come up as false positives. So instead, very briefly, let's have a look at another one where we have no idea whether this can be a false positive or not. All right, so let's have a look at this one. So we'll go through this very briefly. We have a single transit event. The shape is already looking a bit V-shaped. Maybe not what we want. But we'll very quickly go through the rest just to double check. We have all of this information. It's quite a big star, quite massive, 3.5 times the size of our own sun.
Big.
It is big. It was flagged as a TCE, so as I mentioned before, you can click on this and it'll take you to that other report that you can also look at. You can see the background flux is already looking, it's a bit all over the place.
Bit of a roller coaster.
That's exactly what it is, a bit of a roller coaster. You can see there are slight kind of so kind of a bump is the word I was looking for. In the centroid motion, it's not great. That red kind of light curve is slightly shallower than the blue.
Yeah, I can see that. It seems squished almost.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cause for concern.
Not looking good.
It's not looking good. This moves a little bit. It's not in exactly the same location as in the other two plots.
All right, so before we go any further, I'm going to make a prediction.
Okay.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this is a false positive. It's not going to be an actual planet.
Okay, so what kind of false positive is it going to be?
Perhaps a background eclipsing binary. We saw that V shape. So, and we see that the flux is moving out of transit. So I think there's going to be a nearby eclipsing binary.
All right, well, let's keep going and see whether you're right. with the nearby stars, fingers crossed. This is just such a beautiful plot. Okay, let's keep going. All right, woo! Yes, okay, it is definitely a background eclipsing binary. You can see that binary signal really strong down in the bottom right-hand corner here. And I hate to say it, but Cole was right. All right, well, this is a background eclipsing binary, so all of these tests kind of hinted towards that, and this is kind of the definitive proof right there. And we can scroll all the way down to the bottom. We can see this is a very big star. It's kind of far away from all the evolution tracks, and it is very hot. Okay, so I hope that was useful. We can stop sharing that screen.
Very useful. Yeah, the plots, the report did its job.
It did. It told us it told us that it was a false positive. So I use these plots or these reports, I should say, for all of our targets. I look at all of these kind of diagnostic plots for any candidate. And if you're interested in ruling out false positives or finding out more about the stars and the potential signals, potential planetary signals, I would recommend that you have a go at downloading it. And there will be instructions on how to do that on the website at planethunters.coffee. And yeah, if you find something cool, send it our way. If you are confused by a certain plot, by a certain figure, also send it our way and we can maybe discuss it in the office hours.
Okay, well, that was a really fun journey through this really useful tool. And I think this kind of concludes the false positive bit of Planet Hunters Coffee Chat.
It does, and next we'll be talking about stellar signals.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Nora, and I think we're going to wrap it up here.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for joining, everyone.
All right, see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.